I'm here with Stacey. She has this amazing definition of herself in her website. It starts like this. I'm Stacey and I love Evernote. That's so nice.
It's pretty true.
She's also a productivity coach and a certified Evernote consultant like me. Thank you, Stacey, for accepting my invitation today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, I know that you have this step by step to master Evernote. Can we start? What's the step number one?
The truth is, Evernote is a very deep and powerful platform, and there's a lot of paths to really embracing
Uh-huh.
Evernote. But I think that there's a couple of steps that people who are just casually using Evernote or using it just to collect things can really embrace to uplevel their productivity, really maximize the platform, and falls into 5 categories. So the first one is that I really think people misunderstand and don't fully appreciate the power of Evernote search.
Okay, why you
And
say that?
okay, so the reason I say that is because the most common question I get, and you probably get it too, is how do I organize Evernote for whatever, right? Everybody wants to know. The truth is Evernote can organize any of it. It doesn't, you can design a workflow to organize anything. It's an important question, but I also think it's not quite the right question because when we're talking about how to organize Evernote, people don't understand that search actually, in my perspective, strongly influences how you organize Evernote. When you are trying to organize Evernote and you're struggling to organize Evernote, it's because what I've observed in my years of doing this is you're struggling to take these traditional offline organizing principles, which are around like grouping like things, right? Like creating groupings of things. So think about the grocery store and the produce section. Like you
Yes.
know where the onions are, right? And the potatoes, that's all going to be kind of grouped together. That's an organizing strategy. And it works great. It's efficient, but it doesn't always translate. It's not the first thing that translates to a digital environment or a cloud computing environment like Evernote, because search is a game changer.
I totally
Okay.
agree with you.
I actually, in my view, Evernote is a type of search engine. It's just a search engine on your own stuff. And the truth is that search influences number one, how I find things, which is really what you want. When you're asking me, how do I organize Evernote? You're asking me, how do I find what I'm looking for when I need it? And so the first tool that I rely on to do that most often is search.
Yeah, I usually ask the person, what do you want to find? Instead of how can I organize it, I always ask, what do you want to find? I
Yeah.
guess that's what you're trying to say,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We're totally aligned in this. And so the truth is Evernote's industry leading in terms of search. It's a core element of something they constantly evolve. And so the fact that people miss the importance of this really speaks to how organized you and fluent you are with Evernote. So when you stop trying to figure out how to organize and you start to understand how deeply you can search and how search works, you can then start to use the Evernote tools to what I call set yourself up for search success, which allows you to deploy the features of Evernote, notebooks, stacks, tags, naming conventions, shortcuts, save searches, all these kinds of things to help you, in essence, organize Evernote because they help you to find what you're looking for. But it all starts with search and understanding that number one, Evernote indexes everything you put into it, like
So
everything.
you're not saying that we don't need a notebook or a
No, I'm
tag.
not saying that at all. I'm saying it's not the right place to start
Okay.
with. I'm saying the notebook that you choose and the naming convention and the way you organize that is going to be impacted when you understand how search works. Because what you're going to do is you're going to configure that notebook and all the notes in it to set yourself up for search success. So it's going to provide a visual, human, brain friendly element over there on your sidebar. It's going to produce that produce grouping that we have at the grocery store, right? Where it's like, okay, your brain can go right there for key things, but it's going to be influenced based on search and how search works. So that's a concept that a lot of people miss entirely. And here's an analogy, and I wrote a whole blog post about this, so people can go deeper with it if this idea interests them. But like, think about it in a digital world. We all know Google. We all
Yes.
know that Google retrieves our stuff fast. Is Google organizing the internet?
Not the way people think.
They are retrieving it. They're search and finding
Yes.
it. Like, we conceptually get that. So if and we trust Google, and we know we can find what we need with Google. So we don't ask Google to organize the internet for us. We ask Google to search and find and retrieve. And when you get that you can do that and rely on Evernote in the same way, it changes how you organize. So for example, let's talk about the classic debate, notebooks versus tags, right?
Yes,
Should we
let's
get
go.
right into it? Okay. Like uh, uh, when you understand search, you understand that Evernote's indexing everything that goes into it. And I know people are going to just gloss over the everything word, so we can get into some specifics. But the truth is, your entire note, anything that's in the note, whether it's the interior contents of a PDF, of a document, a Word document, an Excel document, the handwriting that you put into a picture, all of that is retrieved by search or indexed by search. Like all those things are
Yes.
tags in essence. They're already in the note. So if you're spending time attempting to organize by tags, you're being redundant. You're doing extra work. Feel free to do extra work, but
Yes.
I don't want to do extra work. Why would I add tags to a note that already has all those keywords in it, right? When Evernote's indexing and finding it. So it's really quite magical how search works, and people need to comprehend that because it then influences
So
how you organize Evernote.
when should we create a notebook? When should we use tags? If everything is searchable, for example, my wife, she has
Well,
a single notebook and she searches for everything. But when should we create a notebook and tags, in your opinion?
when you feel like it would be more efficient than
Yeah, I
searching.
agree.
So let's just answer it like a little more specific. Like if you have a low note count, one notebook's fine and search. And there comes a point where it's most efficient for me to create some structure around some common use cases for me, right? Some
Okay.
common use cases. So I've created and I build out and I do rely on those elements. It's just my point is they're completely influenced by my understanding of search because search is my go-to kind of skill set with Evernote and the way that I retrieve and find what I'm looking for, even with 30,000 notes.
I like to use the analogy of like a video game when we have lives and energy, a energy bar. So I like to think that if I'm expending too much energy searching, it's a good idea to have a notebook, and vice versa. If I'm spending too much time organizing instead of
Yeah,
searching, I'm expending energy, my lives in the video game. And so it's better to search. So I like this energy analogy because in the end, it's energy. We're spending time, right? We're spending our life organizing or searching or finding, looking for
I love
information.
that. I think that's great, and it gets around the challenge of like where's the threshold? Like that's what you're saying is it's actually an energetic and time threshold. It's not a note count threshold. It's not that kind of thing. You could have 10 notes, and search might be your best bet, except for the fact that one of them is your errands list, and you're referring to that all the time.
Yes.
So why do you have to search for it every time when you could just shortcut that and have it accessible on all your devices from your home
Or
or from
pin it at
yeah,
home.
pin a note, pin on the note, right? We have new options now. So
Yes.
they're just discovery options. All of those are discovery options. And that's why I really encourage people to focus on search skills versus organizational skills if they're struggling to organize
I
Evernote.
like the analogy you told me once about a house. When you move to a house, you have the boxes. Can you tell us that one?
Sure. Yeah. So the way that I like to explain what search does is like, let's assume you're moving and you pack up all your stuff into cardboard boxes and you move into this new house that has this magic feature. And that feature is every time you bring something through a threshold, the door or a window, it's like got this magic. It looks at everything that's in the box and it categorizes and indexes and tracks where you put that into the house. So let's just say you've had a long day of unpacking, you brought all this stuff into the house, you sit down, you want to pop open a bottle of wine and relax, and you're like, I need a corkscrew. Here's my corkscrew. And the house goes, Stacey, your corkscrew's here it's in that box that's in your bedroom and didn't get put in the kitchen. And
Yes.
then what it does though is it like beams you right to the corkscrew. So you can open up that box and get your corkscrew. Okay. Super cool. But it's beyond that. It like also will say, wait, Stacey, you have 4 corkscrews. Which corkscrew do you want? Right. And it'll ask you what you want. And then you can pick it and it'll beam you right there. Okay. In essence, this is what Evernote does. And even beyond like beaming me to that location, if I then realize, oh my gosh, My corkscrew should not be in my bedroom. It should be in the kitchen. Okay. I'm going to carry it downstairs and put it in the kitchen in the drawer. Evernote's going to track that. The house is going to track that. And it's going to know that it's in this new location. And it's going to take me there next time I go to search for it. Okay. So this is exactly how Evernote works. It's a magic house. Anytime something crosses into your Evernote account, and that's anything, these boxes contain all kinds of materials. In Evernote term, they contain text, forwarding in emails, websites that you clip into Evernote, PDFs that you put in, images that you put in. If you're a paying subscriber, any Word docs, Pages documents, any of the major, document platforms that you store in Evernote. If it's digital and you put it in Evernote,
gonna
Evernote's
now,
indexed.
now I want now I want
Indexed.
this Evernote house.
Yeah, you
No,
have it. It's
I mean a
here.
real house, a real house. Maybe that's a
Yeah, I
good
know.
product for Evernote in the future.
Yeah. So it's good. But I trust Evernote to find what I'm
Yes.
looking for. And it's a key reason to pay Evernote so that everything you put into there is indexed, right? The free level has some of the handwriting capability in images, but if you want it to index the interior contents of it, say your PDFs and your other documents that you use in your life, that's a reason to become a
So
paying
upgrade,
subscriber.
yes.
Yeah.
And talking about capturing things, step number 2, what it is?
Yeah. Okay. So then, obviously, all this stuff's coming into our house,
Yes.
right? And when you understand the power of that, you want to put more things in your house. And so the next step to really mastering and making Evernote magical for you is around getting more stuff in there, right?
Okay.
And I like to reference there's a concept, whether you embrace GTD, get David Allen's getting things done philosophy or not, he has a construct in there that applies to anything. And that is that there's stages for mastering workflow. So if you look at what we actually go through to accomplish things, it's a 5-step process: capture, clarify, organize, review, and engage.
Okay.
Okay. So having said that, what's the very first one?
Capture.
Capture, right? So no matter what we do, you have an idea, you see something that is interesting to you, you have a project come at you, you have to capture it. And so no matter what tool you use, you go through this process. Evernote happens to be the top capture tool on the market. So we're already off to a good start if we capture everything in Evernote. So then let's look at where the ideas for what we want to capture come from. One of the biggest use cases that people miss is the web. Okay, especially in a digital environment. You're reading blog posts, you are researching vendors, you're looking at customers, you're looking at recipes. I mean, there's so much we want to collect. And typically people use bookmarks to
Save that.
to save them. So Evernote though has a browser extension called the Web Clipper. And most people, when they realize what the Web Clipper can do, are hooked on Evernote moving. It revolutionizes, number one, how you use bookmarks. It allows you to then, here's what it does. You install the browser extension. And then if you have something on the web that you want to save, you simply click it and it saves it into Evernote for you. Then everything that it saved becomes searchable because it crossed our threshold into our house. Evernote also holds the original URL back to
Yes.
the original website. So it's taken a copy of that website, but you can always get back to the website if you need to.
Hmm.
And now it's searchable inside Evernote anytime you need it. And you can edit the note and the page and all kinds of stuff. So conceptually, it's really, really powerful. And a lot of people like my brother, I worked for years to try to get him to use Evernote,
Uh-huh.
and good luck convincing your family members and your spouse or whoever it is to embrace the tools you love. But I knew I had him when I got a text from him that said, "Web Clipper's dope." That's all it said. Web Clipper's dope. So
I call Web Clipper a second better thing after Evernote.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Second best
So
thing.
it's just such a big use case. And then what it does is it frees up, it allows you to then organize too. Like, good luck organizing your browser bookmarks when they get to be hundreds,
Hmm.
if not thousands of bookmarks, right? The Web Clipper changes how I use bookmarks. So now bookmarks are reserved specifically for quick access
Okay.
to key sites that I use, not retaining information that I want to reference later. So anything if I want to retain or reference in the future or research or come back to, that's not like my bookmarks are about my accessing my email, my calendar, my contacts, because I'm doing that all the time, logging into the systems that I use to run my business, right?
So for people that don't know Web Clipper, we have bookmarks. We can capture the entire page. I like the one that it simplifies the page. Do you like that one?
Okay, so this is the next thing. Like once people understand the concept of the web clipper, that you can capture anything and not do a bookmark for it, you can capture and retain it in Evernote. Then they that's as far as they go. But like in my academy where I teach Evernote, we have a 1 hour training on all the nuances, opportunities, and features just of the web
Web
clipper.
Clipper, yeah.
A whole hour just on how you can maximize and granularly improve upon your organization of what you're clipping based on the
Web
web clipper,
Clipper.
because it has so many nuances. To your point, different formats. So you can play with the clip formats. You can assign a note title. You can assign a tag. You can organize it in a notebook. You have secret ways to capture. If you are selecting text and
Mm-hmm.
then hit the web clipper, it'll only capture that. It'll give you the option to only capture that selection. You can highlight in simplified article. There's official integrations with key sites like Amazon or LinkedIn. I mean, there's all these nuances that really say what I call, it's a concept I talk about a lot, is creating micro efficiencies
Mm-hmm.
in your workflow. So clipping is a huge transformative kind of idea. But then how can we granularly improve upon our clipping process and our workflows? And that just takes some Evernote skill education. So, but look into it and know that it's there.
Great.
Evernote itself has a lot of great lessons on the web clipper, or you can look for something more official if that interests you.
So I have a question for your use. Do you capture it and select a notebook, or do you let Web Clipper select it for you? The automation from Web Clipper.
Okay, this is a key tip. So that's the other part. Nobody ever goes through the web clipper settings. You absolutely want to go through the web clipper settings because they have something called smart filing. And I hate smart filing. I hate it.
Me too.
I always turn it off. Like Evernote can't do a better job filing my stuff than I can.
Yes.
So they try to guess where they think you want things to go. And it's one of the top questions you'll see in forums. Why can't I find my clip? And you're like, well, it's because smart filing is turned on and they put it somewhere that you didn't intentionally want it to go. So I am adamantly against smart filing, turn it off. And then to your question before that, the answer is yes. I organize it from the web clipper sometimes, but most often, no. I just throw it to my default notebook, and then I will clean it up and organize it and file it in Evernote.
Okay, and I've heard you're coming to Portugal. Is that right?
I can't wait till I come to Portugal. So, okay, this gets into my third tip here. So, once you understand, how search works, once you start capturing through various methods, the web clipper is a great one to embrace. Then you really should start to use Evernote for something that's meaningful to you, like a workflow that has meaning to you. Because if it has meaning to you, you're going to open Evernote, you're going to work with it, you're going to capture notes around it, that kind of a thing. So, a common one that I really love and that I use for, and one of the things that helped me to love Evernote was
Okay.
around travel. Okay, so Portugal's high on my list of places to go. I mean, it's right at the top. Um, I create one notebook per trip.
Mm-hmm.
And key to this is I assign a consistent naming convention because it's likely that I'm traveling more than once. And I define travel pretty liberally. It might be me going to a town 2 hours away for an
Okay.
overnight trip or a conference or a day trip, or it could be me flying to Portugal. I'm based in the
Okay.
US, as probably people probably figured out, in Texas. So it would be, you can see they're very distinctive types of trips, but they're both trips.
Okay.
So I would create a notebook for each of those and I would assign a naming convention. And I suggest starting with something simple like travel colon.
Okay.
Okay, so what that does is that helps you again it helps us to go into our natural grouping of liked things. So we talked
Okay.
about that right at the beginning, right? So here's an organizational strategy. I want to group like things. My travel is like thing. So I'm going to use a naming convention and start with travel. That'll sort all the T's together, and
Mm-hmm.
those notebooks will naturally float together. And then in my case, I use a date because I think the
Okay.
upcoming date is important. And I game it by starting with the year, then the month, then the day, so that they go in chronological order. Then I typically put a keyword into the notebook title. In the case of Portugal, it would be Portugal,
Okay.
right?
So there's another tip. You can use Command J or Control Q on Command J on Mac and Control Q on Windows, and just type travel, and you'll see all your travel
Right.
notebooks.
That's the other advantage to that is then I can filter based on now again, what is that? That's a search tactic.
Yes.
It's a search tactic that's influencing how I organize my notebooks. And I'm putting a keyword in my notebook so that when because I know about Command J, which is a search technique, Command J on the Mac, I'm able to filter down to and look at all of my travel after I've web clipped something into my default notebook that I want to file inside
That's why I
Evernote.
always ask what you want to find.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what you want to find, you cannot organize it.
Yeah.
That
That's right.
that's so
I love
so
that.
yeah. But what happens after the trip? You keep the notebook or you file what
No, it depends. Typically, I dismantle the notebook.
okay.
The event is over, and often on the airplane, if I'm traveling on an airplane, I'll work in offline mode, and I'll take out I'll purge notes I don't need anymore. I'll refile notes that might be related to another thing. Like maybe I come and meet with you while I'm in Portugal, and we plan some future podcast episodes. So
Okay.
that has changed context for me. So now I'm going to create a notebook around our future podcast episode and move our notes into that. So I use the notebook while I'm on the trip, and then I reorganize it and I look at the context changed when the trip is over. On the other side, sometimes I'm like, well, I'm coming back here or I need to retain this. I might merge notes. I might put it into a
Okay.
past travel notebook, that kind of a thing.
So
So it's an
you
active,
have like an archive of travels of trips?
some for
Okay.
some trips. Yeah.
Okay. So and what do you have inside those notebooks?
So I use a lot of things. First of all, anything that is related to my trip, and then I'll use naming conventions on the notes to more granularly organize it inside, or sometimes tags as well. I have a template. I use a series of templates in my travel, typically a packing checklist, and I'll duplicate that into the travel notebook to make the packing process a little more efficient.
Okay.
I also use a concept called a project management note, and I pin that note to using a what's called a non-dated reminder.
Okay.
Uh, I will add that to my notebook because typically I'm clipping or adding a lot of notes, forwarding in reservation confirmations. I'm getting ready to go to Charleston, South Carolina in a couple of weeks. So looking at restaurants, I'm looking activities. All this is web clipped in. I'm coordinating about a retreat I'll be attending. So I've got business functions, personal functions, hotel reservations, anything. I commingle it all in that notebook and then organize it granularly from there.
So
And I use,
you create
oh,
an
I
index
know
in that note?
the project management note is kind of like a dashboard within the
Okay.
notebook.
Okay.
And I use internal note links
Okay.
to quickly navigate to keynotes inside that notebook. So even though everything's kind of commingled, I'm further granularly organizing it in the notebook through naming conventions and through a summary note that has hyperlinks. So I might put like restaurants to try, and I
Okay.
might hyperlink to all of those. I might say, sites to see. I might have a checklist in there of items to ask the facilitator of the retreat. I might have tasks in there about things that I need to do. I need to cancel or make a reservation, that kind of a thing.
And and what about things you capture during the trip? Did you put in a specific notebook, or if it's trip related, you put in that notebook?
It's contextual,
Okay.
so I'll do both. If I'm on the trip, I might just capture it there because that's the context I'm in, and then, it's not like the thing is people you can't just in organization systems, you just can't capture and do nothing. Like I told you, there's 5 stages of workflow: capture, clarify, organize, engage, and do. People are struggling to clarify and organize, and you have to do those kinds of
Yeah.
things. So I'm like going in and I'm clarifying if this is what it's part of. Like I have a thought process that's helping me to decide where that goes, and then the context changes. So there's times when I go in and kind of fix it. But if the context is around the trip, I'll put it there in the notebook for the trip.
I don't like to delete anything in Evernote because it feels like I'm deleting part of my memory.
Sometimes. But the other thing is, there's like after on the way home, I mean, I don't need that confirmation of my flight
Yeah.
uh, anymore.
I,
You
I,
know,
I keep that because sometimes I want some detail of that trip, and sometimes the confirmation. I never know what I will need. So I have just two notebooks. I have travel, and I have travel in progress. In fact, it's trips and trip in progress, and the name implies what it is. But so what is in progress? What I'm working on, or the travel I'm doing right now? I live in this notebook. If it's one that it's coming in the future, it's also there. Maybe if there are too many of them, I'll use tags to filter them. But when it's done, I just move them all the notes to the travel notebook, and I never delete it because once in a while there's something, oh, I wish I had that, so I could find this information, I could know what I want to know now. So I feel bad to delete notes, so I just
Well,
keep
and
it there.
the nice part is there's really no reason you have to delete it.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
store like our entire
yeah,
life there.
great.
So when are you coming?
All right, so I'll start my notebook today, and I'll start manifesting my trip to Portugal. I'm ready. I love it.
Great.
I can't wait to see it, and I'll
Yeah,
come. I look forward to seeing you in person.
and I like the idea that you have this style of life. You work there, you work from there, but your system let you work from anywhere.
Well, I think it's back to what you opened with. I mean, the reason I love Evernote so much is it shifted how I work and how
Hmm.
I live my life, and it helps me to have everything I need from my phone in the worst case scenario,
Yes.
if I need it. So that's it. My passion for Evernote is around the fact that it supports me in living, kind of this mobile lifestyle if I'd like it.
Great. And what's step number 4?
Okay, so one of the great things about Evernote is that they are innovating and updating the application quickly. So, 2 years ago, they undertook a major process. Maybe the process probably started 3 years ago, but
Yes,
about
yes.
about a year and a half ago, we saw the fruits of that released with a new client called version 10. So visually very similar. However, most people needed some education that it's actually a brand new app. It's not a evolution. It was a whole new code base. Okay,
Yes.
so we have version 10 and we have legacy Evernote. And over the last year, many of the features that were in legacy Evernote and not in version 10, we call that a feature gap,
Hmm.
got built back into version 10. So now version 10 is really my advised client for almost all Evernote users, and they are iterating on version 10 quickly. Every 2 to 3 weeks, Evernote releases an update, and every single time we're seeing some kind of improvement to performance, bug fixes, and then often they're releasing new
Hmm.
features as well. So my next tip is to work in version 10 and keep current with the clients, both the desktop and mobile clients, because it impacts your overall experience and the options you have with Evernote.
I would like to add something here because since you talked about the new Evernote 10, I have this feeling that before Ian Small, we had Evernote going on a direction of we can do everything with Evernote. We had presentation mode, we had and still have workshop, but now it's hidden there and somewhere. I remember I used to have my blog in Postachio too, that
Yeah,
would read
right.
Evernote notes and transform those notes in pages of the site. So I'm to blame too. I was trying to go on that direction, do everything with Evernote, and I think there's a very huge shift in direction here. Evernote is now more like a dashboard, and we are connecting to the other tools. And I think that's a more productive way of using the tool. What are your thoughts on that?
When you're trying to talk about workflows to get things done and use technology to support that, I mean, they're all just tools. So
Hmm.
use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, Evernote's a very powerful tool. It's not the only tool I use, right? But it is my hub, it's my dashboard, it's my home
Hmm.
base, and it is where I go primarily. It's the first thing that fires up when I go to my computer in the morning, and it's always on and open for me. And it's my center. It's my productivity center. It's also not necessarily where I do 100% of everything. So I like it's excellent for what it's excellent for. And that is, it's a very flexible platform. so I can customize it to meet whatever workflow goal I want. That's one of the key things. We talked about search, and I can find and
Mm-hmm.
retrieve if it's in Evernote. But, I work with an editor often, and we're collaborating in a writing environment where we need to co-edit documents and create comments and do all these kinds of things. That is a tool that we find Google Docs better suited for. Okay. That's one example. So I have a Google Doc. I have a process with her where I am working on something, and then we can, write comments, we can edit, we can suggest, we can do all kinds of things. We have a whole conversation, separate tool. However, I take the step of getting that share link from that Google Doc and putting it in Evernote, which is managing my content creation process. So I have a bunch of things beyond that single doc that I track in Evernote. And that doc is one piece of my entire puzzle. So that link to that Google Doc to make it easy for me to get over there, which by the way, Evernote has a official integration with
Yes.
Google. So they make it very easy to get between the two platforms. But any public link from
Will
any
work.
cloud service will work. I'm using Evernote for what it's best for, and that is the project management portion of it, the dashboard
Hmm.
functionality, and then I'm using Google for that live
And
editing
just
and
out of
collaboration.
curiosity, do you like you work on a draft on the note when you're working on a note?
Well, quite honestly, my first draft is in
Okay.
Evernote. So I open Evernote, I write my outline or my notes, and then at some point when I need to pull her into it, and I know that we're going to move into kind of an editing and feedback stage, I'm just copying, pasting, I'm renaming it to draft one
Okay.
for whatever it is, and then I grab the share link on that Google Doc and add it to my draft one. So I'm tracking my process there and using the tool that's best for the
Okay.
goal at the
And
time.
there's a quote from Phil Libin that you like, and I like it too. What is that?
Well, I may not say it quite right, but back when they were doing conferences, right? Back the he was saying like, look, Evernote can be your hub. It can be your center. He's like, and you can store things in Evernote, but it's not you don't store everything in Evernote. It's not where we want you to store your copy of Avatar, which is infamously like the longest, biggest movie
Yeah.
ever, right? So it's like it's not the right tool to store everything. I think it's the right tool to reference everything.
Okay.
So here's the thing is like if you're going to use Evernote in the way I use Evernote and the way you use Evernote to really have all of these dashboard benefits and go deep with the platform, there's a lot to learn. Right. I've spent years self learning and developing, and it's possible to do. Go to the tip here is you have to create a structure to embrace and keep up with what Evernote's doing. They're evolving. It's a deep platform. There's so many little
Hmm.
nuances, and then they're evolving quickly. Right. So that creates an environment where if you're going to stay sharp with it, you need to be you need to constantly learn with it. So create a structure around that, and you can self learn or you can pay to
Okay.
learn, right? So it's really what works for you. If you want to self learn, Evernote does an amazing job on YouTube and with their help articles. Those are two great resources. Vlad, you've got a great resources on
Thank you.
your YouTube channel. There's all kinds of things that you can do to self learn and keep up. It's the way I went. The thing is, I've been doing this now 12 years or more, so I have a deep history and understand the path with it. But you can self learn, no problem. There's also paid resources. I have an academy where it's a membership training, Evernote Membership Academy, where you learn everything you need to have Evernote applied to your workflows, the skills and the workflows, and you get access to me in a community environment. I can cut the learning curve for you and help focus the time. So there's different options, but the tip around it is create a structure to
Okay.
learn, right? And having some accountability in some form or another in order to constantly incrementally improve your skills is important. Whether that's simply time blocking, say I'm going to do 1 hour a week on improving my Evernote education. You can go through a free or a paid resource to do that. I think that's part of the key to learning. And what I have found is that I actually learn better in accountability groups. So I'm a member of a lot of different, or actually I'd say a handful of communities that facilitate like online
Okay.
co-working. And it's become so important that it's actually a offering I do within the academy for my GTD members. We co-work together because that accountability element really helps people to embrace it a little bit more.
There's so much to learn and to do with what Evernote already have. And they are, like you said, they are improving like every 2, 3 weeks. Like you, I'm with this like 12 years, but I have to stop and learn. Oh, okay, there's a new feature here. What's happening? What's going on here?
Well, it's fun, and users have questions. So, like, even just at the time of recording this last week, they pushed out calendar
Yes.
notifications, right? So I had users in my community like going, "Hey, what's this calendar notification?" Right? So if you're not working one on one with somebody or in a community, you've got to stop and try to figure out if you're what that means to you, right? But it's also powerful and something to know about. So just kind of know that that's going to happen and create a structure for yourself, whether you're time blocking and going a free route or time blocking and working one on one with somebody or blocking and working in a community. There's lots to learn. And I think it's well worth I know it's well worth the time. I see the
Yes.
transformation in people's
And
workflows.
where can people go to find the academy?
So my website, harmonenterprises.com, will get you to the products I offer, and that is the academy there. It's just /academy.
Great. Anything else you want to add?
No, I love talking Evernote, and it's so much fun to discuss it with you.
So I hope you come
Finally,
back in the future.
we do it outside of this scenario all the
Yes.
time, so it's nice to actually do it on camera. But yeah, always fun to like geek out and talk about our favorite tools. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you for coming. See you. Bye bye.